Hey, this is Velazco from Engadget, and if you've been reading our site lately, you'll know that we're rather big fans of this guy, the new Moto X. Motorola and Google just recently announced something that's a bit more impressive though. It's this guy, the new Nexus 6. It is the biggest and most expensive entry in the Nexus smartphone line to date, so let's take a really quick look at how it works. So one of the biggest things to note about the Nexus 6 is actually the giant screen. It is, as the name implies, a 6-inch screen, and it does run at Quad HD, which does make it one of the crispest and actually one of the brightest displays we've come across in a while. It's not actually as crisp as the new Droid Turbo, which takes the same number of pixels and crams them into a 5.2-inch screen, but it's not going to make a huge difference for you. This is still really a sight to behold. It does have a Qualcomm Snapdragon 805 ticking inside, running at 2.7 gigahertz. And in our brief time using the thing, we haven't been able to stymie it at all. Firing up apps and scrolling through web pages as fast as we can has proven to be little trouble for this guy. So my personal favorite improvement is the updated camera on the back. Now, it's still technically a 13 megapixel shooter like the one we saw on the Moto X, but it has been graced with optical image stabilization and generally a much nicer sensor. Some of the photos that we've taken with this guy look dramatically better than what we've been able to coax out of the Moto X. And if you've read our review, that was one of our biggest issues. So it's really nice to see that Google and Motorola have finally sussed it out. Taking a moment to look at design, yeah, your eyes don't fool you. It's basically a Moto X with a Nexus logo on the back. That's actually a really good thing. If you take a look, Motorola has been fond of these very gentle sloping curves for a long time now. And the idea is that they help the device fit much better into your hands. Now, for a device like this with a whopping 6-inch screen, really every little bit helps. So the fact that we do have these curves makes the whole thing feel a lot more comfortable than you would think. It's still not iPhone slim, but if you're used to holding something like the 6 Plus, you won't really have any trouble grabbing the Nexus 6. So let's take a moment to talk quickly about software. The Nexus 6 does run Android 5.0 Lollipop, and though we haven't had a ton of time to play with it, it is generally pretty impressive, and that's at least partially because it's so pretty. Google's material design is here in full force. You can see it sort of influencing design elements all over the place. And Google has said it is sort of the foundation for the design going forward, so don't expect this thing to disappear in a couple years like Holo does. Google's kind of in it for the long haul. So in terms of first impressions, we actually really like the Nexus 6. That's really not a surprise, but the one thing that does come as a bit of a shock is the price. We're going to be looking at paying $649 for the stock 32 gig version. You can get it in midnight blue or this rather fetching white. But it does make it the most expensive Nexus smartphone to date. You're going to have to think long and hard about whether or not that's worth it to you. We think it might be, but stay tuned for a full review to find out more. Droid Turbo. It's a follow-up to the Moto X in a lot of interesting ways, mostly because it took just about everything we didn't like about the Moto X and improved it. So we're looking at